Welcome back, darling listeners. Tonight's story is filled with slow burn tension, stolen glances, dangerous secrets, and a love neither of them expected. So dim the lights, get comfortable, and let yourself fall into tonight's BL story. This is Soft Ember BL Stories, and the story begins now. Night. The blackout curtains swallowed every ounce of street lamp glare, plunging the dorm room into a pitch black void. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face. A rustle from the top bunk by the window. In the dead of night, the sound was abrasive, the kind that makes you instinctively scowl in the dark, a spike of irritation breaking the silence. But the noise didn't stay put. It moved. Following a blind trajectory, it slipped past the privacy curtain dividing the beds, crawling straight up a pair of solid, muscular calves before finally settling over his hips. Two bare, pale legs, clad in nothing but boxers, apologetically straddling the guy underneath. My eyes were wide open, but completely vacant, dead to the world. I sat there in a daze for a second before a glitching instinct seemed to kick in. My lips parted. Thirsty. Need water. Like a stray puppy. My nose twitched, sniffing blindly around the dark for a source of hydration. I leaned down, hovering over him, tracking a damn, crisp scent, peppermint breath. Thirsty. Water. I chased it. Messy. Desperate. Licking and kissing my deeply asleep roommate, trying to draw whatever moisture I could from his mouth, seeking an oasis. But the more I drank, the hotter my body ran, the hotter I felt, the drier my throat became. So, I just sucked harder, until the guy beneath me, dead tired from his relentless daytime training, was literally licked awake. Fuck. Bashert, Joel. I choked gas. But the second his mouth opened, I invaded deeper, taking the ground he gave. Pure reflex kicked in. Lucci and gang shoved me hard to the side, scrambled for his phone, and flicked on the flashlight. Blinding white light. It cut through the cramped space, illuminating my dumb, docile, sleep-drugged face. Recognizing me, Lucci and gang tossed the phone onto the mattress and grabbed me by the collar. Tongue Tan, are you so fucking desperate for a guy that you recrawling into my bed? He hissed the words, dropping his voice, probably terrified someone else would hear this absolute disaster. But he could be as vicious as he wanted, even though I was terrified of him in the daylight. My sleepwalking brain only registered one thing. Dry lips pressed together. My throat swallowed hard. Water. He froze, his brow furrowing. You mother. He didn't move. My body didn't either. Just my head, lunging forward to clamp my mouth over his once again. Lucci and Yang's eyes blew wide open. Fuck. The next morning, I woke up and instinctively smacked my lips. Usually, I woke up with my mouth feeling like sandpaper. Why were my lips so soft and hydrated today? Did I chug water last night? I racked my brain but came up empty. Must have. I swung my legs over to climb down from the top bunk, turning my head only to lock eyes with the massive, dark circles under Lucci and Yang's eyes. Clearly, he hadn't slept for shit. And right now, he was glaring at me with pure, unadulterated resentment. I swallowed nervously. Was he pissed off because I slept like a baby while he tossed and turned? To break the suffocating awkwardness, I forced out a dry chuckle. Morning, bro Luke. Silence. He didn't say a word. His eyes just stayed superglued to my face, staring so intensely it felt like he was trying to bore a hole through my skull. From the opposite bunk, Lang Tu climbed down, his hair a sexy, messy bedhead. The Ekin Major with the beautiful, fox-like eyes that were currently narrowed, giving off a heavy do not fuck with me vibe. Good looks. Old money rumor had it half the girls on campus wanted to get him into bed. Next to him was the Mac from the dance department. The untouchable, long-haired campus beauty. An ethereal face, but a personality so freezing it could give you frostbite in mid-July. And then there was Lucci and gang. The 6 for sports major whose biceps were literally thicker than my thighs. All 3 of them were top-tier campus royalty. And not a single one had a tolerable personality. In short, I couldn't afford to cross any of them. Normally, we were just roommates. A nod in the hallway. Nothing more. So having Lucci and gang stare me down like this was doing terrible things to my anxiety. I let out a slow, silent breath. The pressure in this room is going to kill me. Another night. I smoothed out my blankets on the top bunk. Glancing down, I noticed Lucci and gang. Usually, he'd be hyper-focused on gaming right about now. But tonight his brows were drawn in a tight scowl. His thumb was swiping frantically across his screen, deep into reading something. Curiosity got the better of me. So I leaned over for a peek. I only managed to catch a few fragmented phrases, something about sleepwalking and do not wake them up. The next second, Luke Chiang slammed his phone face down against his chest. The fuck are you looking at? His tone was so sharp it drained the blood right out of my face. I shook my head frantically, my heart in my throat. Watching me scramble back into my bed, his expression darkened. A moment later, he climbed up into his own bunk, but right before he yanked his privacy curtain shut, he shot me a loaded, warning glare. Watch your back, kid. I almost died on the spot. I didn't even dare to breathe too loud. Was he planning to murder me in my sleep just because I accidentally peeked at his screen? Thank God I live in a society with laws, I thought. Terrified, my mind spun in circles for a long time until sheer exhaustion took over, and I finally passed out against my pillow. Over in the next bunk, Luke Chiang stayed on high alert for ages, waiting for me to make a move. When I never came crawling over, the fatigue finally dragged him under. But the exact second he fell asleep, my eyes completely dead to the world snapped wide open. Moving with eerie, practiced silence, I slipped down the ladder and climbed straight up to the opposite bunk. The moment my weight shifted onto the mattress, Lang Tu, a notoriously light sleeper, opened his eyes. What? Hanging onto the railing, I stared blankly into his eyes for a long, heavy beat. I just crawled right into his bed. Under Lang Tu's shocked, disbelieving gaze, I reached out and methodically started unbuttoning his pajama shirt. Tong Yin Tan, seeing me invade his space just to strip him, even a seasoned player like Lang Tu let out an irritated, breathy laugh. Don't fucking tell me you've got a crush on me too. I didn't answer. My vacant eyes zeroed in on the small, pink peak on his chest. I swallowed hard. Catching him completely off guard, I lunged forward and clamped my mouth hard over it. Because I lunged with so much blind momentum, my face smashed right into his firm, solid pecs. The impact stung my nose. Choking on a sob, I buried my face into his chest and started bawling. Mom. It hurts. Lang Tu froze, looking like an absolute idiot. It took him a long, drawn-out moment before a loud, perfectly articulated curse shattered the pitch-black room. What the fuck? Plick. The overhead lights flicked on, blindingly bright. Luke Chiang ripped his curtain back from the opposite bunk. Tamak did the same from next door. And there I was, clinging to Lang Tu's chest like a koala, absolutely refusing to let go. My eyes were wet with tears, but my lips were smacking together in pure, oblivious satisfaction. Mom. Tamak blinked. Tamak frowned. Tamak tried to suppress it, and finally, the ice-cold campus prince actually burst out laughing. Luke Chiang just stared at me. A sudden, inexplicable surge of dark, heavy irritation washing over him. Lang Tu tried to shove me off, but every time he moved, I just cried harder. Defeated, he was forced to just sit there and take it, basically holding me in his arms now, looking like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. He glared at the other two. What the hell do we do now? Luke Chiang stayed dead silent. Tamak gave a look that clearly said, not my circus, not my monkeys. Lang Tu looked down at me, grinding his teeth so hard his jaw jumped. I am straight. No one can ever find out about this. He glared back up at them. If you guys don't handle this, I swear to God I'll use my family's connections and have him. He took a sharp breath, kicked the fuck out of his dorm. Morning. When I woke up, sunlight was streaming into the room. After sleeping like a rock through the entire night, I stretched out, my body feeling incredibly light and completely relaxed. I smacked my lips, noticing a dull ache in my jaw. I figured it was just muscle strain from chewing that overcooked, tough roast chicken yesterday. I had absolutely no idea it was the aftermath of sucking on something way too hard in the middle of the night. Ignorance truly is bliss. Down below, my bladder throbbed with a sharp, urgent pressure. I shoved my feet into my slippers and bolted for the bathroom. Maybe my brain was still half asleep from resting so well, because I completely missed the fact that Luke Chiang had just walked in there. The door was shut, but not latched. I yanked it open and stepped inside only to be instantly blindsided by a massive, towering Luke Chiang. What the fuck are you doing? Tong Yin Tan. His face hardened, his eyes shooting worried daggers at me. I jumped. My gaze instinctively dropped lower, and my eyes nearly popped out of my skull. A fucking T-Rex. Luke Chiang. Are you even human? He had been glaring at my face, but the second my eyes dropped, his followed. It took him a split second to realize he had just been seen in all his glory. He practically jumped out of his skin, frantically covering up and zipping his pants. He whipped around, grabbed me by the shirt collar, and yanked me roughly into the bathroom. Tongue and tan. I fucking told you to stay away from me. His massive fist was hovering barely 2 inches from my face. All the color drained from my cheeks. My mind blanked out, and my mouth ran on pure, unfiltered panic. It's not like I asked you to show it to me. Luke cheating Ang froze. A second later, his handsome face flashed a violent, furious red. His fist clenched tighter, pulling back to swing. Terrified, I squeezed my eyes shut. What I couldn't see, however, was exactly how I looked cowering against that wall in his eyes. Asmana, pale face, eyes squeezed shut in fear. Naturally pink lips pressed tightly together. Long lashes trembling like a dying butterfly frantically beating its wings in the summer heat. My chin was tipped up, the loose collar of my pajamas slipping to expose the delicate line of my collarbone and snow-white skin. The man, who had been absolutely burning with rage a second ago, suddenly froze. His gaze dropped, involuntarily locking onto those lips, still faintly glossy with moisture. His Adam's apple bobbed heavily. The phantom sensation of that soft, wet touch from the other night flashed behind his eyes. The memory of my pliant body curled against his, murmuring in that breathy, needy voice, thirsty. Slowly, he leaned down. His towering frame shadowed over me, inch by inch, swallowing me out. The air between us thickened, breathing tangling in a sudden, heavy haze of ambiguity. The interruption. Suddenly, the bathroom door was ripped open. Mac stood there, his long hair cascading down his back, his eyes still hazy with sleep, taking in the scene in front of him. He stopped dead in his tracks. A look of pure, unadulterated disgust crossed his face. Am I interrupting something? The sound of a third voice snapped me out of it. I threw my eyes open. I saw Lucci and Yang, usually so aggressive and domineering, blushing furiously. He scrambled backward in a total panic, moving so fast he nearly slipped and ate shit on the tiles. He spat out a muffled curse under his breath and stormed out, taking long strides, not daring to look back. I glanced at Mac's repulsed expression. Carefully, I offer. Do you want to go first? His freezing gaze swept over my clueless face. Without a word, his brow twitched, and he slammed the door shut with a deafening bang. What the hell? Why were all my roommates acting like such freaks? Whatever. My bladder was about to explode. Biological needs came first. The aftermath. After fully relieving myself, I pushed the door open, looking totally refreshed. Both Luke Chang and Mac were nowhere to be seen. I let out a long sigh of relief. Humming a little tune, I started pulling my pajama shirt off over my head, completely oblivious to the person who had just climbed down from his bunk right behind me. He stood there like a ghost, his voice dark and low. Looks like you're in a good mood. Without thinking, I replied, yeah, I've been sleeping really well lately. Even though the days were a bit stressful, waking up feeling this rested wiped the slate clean. It was unbeatable. My body suddenly went rigid. Slowly, I turned around. Lang Tu stood there, completely shirtless. His muscles were perfectly defined, his torso a sculpted work of art, except for one glaring detail. The small, pink peak on his right pectoral was aggressively red, visibly swollen and bruised compared to the other one. Wait, why does that look so familiar? Have I seen that somewhere before? It's not like I make a habit of staring at my roommates' naked bodies. Right. While I was spaced out, staring at his chest, Lang Tu's face darkened with a dangerous stone. He reached out, his hand snapping out to grip my chin tightly. His voice was laced with a vicious, taunting edge. Looks pretty, doesn't it? He leaned in. Wanna have a taste? My heart dropped into my stomach. I nearly jumped out of my skin, my brain short-circuiting with an explosive, screaming panic. Holy shit. My roommate is a total fucking pervert. The recalibration. The realization that my roommate might actually be gay completely threw me into a panic. I needed a straightness recalibration. Fast. That afternoon, I bolted straight to the dance department just to look at the girls. Listening to their soft, delicate voices and watching them glide around in their sleek outfits was an instant relief. Bliss. I was standing there, mentally basking in the comfort of a normal, straight reality, when my eyes suddenly locked onto the Mac practicing inside the studio. His tall, slender frame moved with an unexpected, lethal grace, every motion packed with fluid power. Jesus! Was this the true power of the campus prince? He caught me staring and shot me a look of pure disdain. But when he realized I wasn't looking at anyone else, that my eyes were completely glued to him, something shifted. A long beat passed. And the ice-cold boy actually blushed. He was just executing standard choreography. But watching the contrast between his fierce, powerful movements and that haughty, flushed face made my own ears burn. It was magnetic, completely intoxicating. A nightmare or not. That night, the sleepwalking took over again. In my mind, I was having a bold, lucid dream. I crawled right into my wife's bed. In the pitch-black space, I couldn't make out her face, but she smelled incredible. I buried my face in her chest, inhaling deeply. So damn good. I couldn't see her, but I just knew my wife had to be the most stunning person alive. Oh, her chest felt unusually flat. Whatever. She was fragrant. She was soft, well, not that soft, kind of firm, actually, but a wife is a wife. A minor flaw is totally acceptable, right? Suddenly, the harsh glare of a phone screen caught through the dark. A light illuminated her face, and my brain short-circuited. Huh? Why did my wife look exactly like Tamak? Tamak is my wife. My dream logic accepted it instantly. I beamed, leaning into aggressively plant kisses all over his face, whining in a soft, beady voice. Wife, give me a hug. A solid hand slammed against my face, trying to shove me back. If this were reality, I would have died of embarrassment. But since I thought I was dreaming, I went full rogue using both my arms and legs to lock around Tamak like a koala. I nuzzled my face into his elegant palm like a pathetic puppet. Wife, I love you most. Beneath me, his entire body wet rigid. He looked like he wanted to throttle me. But his hand betrayed his brain. His fingers twitched, softly pinching my cheek instead. I tilted my head up blindly, my voice thick with sleep. Wife, why aren't you kissing me? Can you kiss me just once? Those beautiful, freezing eyes stared down at me. There was a flicker of disgust, followed by hesitation. His grip slackened, taking it as an invitation. I began to squirm, crawling further up his body. MMHF. A low, raspy growl slipped from his throat. The next second, his hand snapped to the back of my neck, locking me in place as he slammed his lips onto mine. It was a fierce, territorial kiss. In my hazy, delusional state, I was thrilled. Wow, my wife is so passionate. She must really love me. I kissed him back with everything I had. But right before I drifted deeper into the dark, I could have sworn I heard someone grinding their teeth, hissing a dark promise directly into my ear. If you dare flirt with anyone else, I will break your legs. The balcony Cold War. For the next few days, daytime felt surprisingly peaceful. The schoolwork was light, and as an introvert, the lack of social chaos was a massive relief. I slept like a log every single night. But a new, unsettling pattern started brewing in the dorm. Every single time I came back from class, I would find my three roommates who normally detested each other's existence huddled together on the balcony. They'd be whispering intensely, their expressions morphing through a chaotic wheel of emotions as if they were locked in a fierce debate. But the exact second I pushed the door open, dead silence. One by one, it would file off the balcony and ignore me. At first, I thought it was just a coincidence. But as the days went on, the frequency only spiked. Even someone as dense as me couldn't ignore it anymore. They were freezing me out. The realization hit me like a physical weight. A wave of intense, suffocating isolation washed over me. I wanted so badly to pull out my phone and call my mom. But I knew the second she asked how I was getting along with my roommates, I'd burst into tears. God, Tong Ning Tan, you are such a coward. The breaking point. That night, the stress bled into my sleep. In my dream, I was finally back in my mother's arms, a safe, warm haven of absolute security. Unable to hold it in anymore, I let out a ragged sob. Mom, I think my roommates are blacklisting me. I was weeping for real, totally oblivious to how loud my pathetic sobs echoed in the dead silent dorm room. In the opposite bunk, Lang Tu was sporting massive, heavy dark circles under his eyes. He looked ready to commit a felony from sheer sleep deprivation. Finally, snapping under the torture of my crying, he lunged across the gap, grabbed the back of my neck, and aggressively buried my face right into his bare chest. Just suck on it. He crawled through gritted teeth, his voice a dangerous, exhausted rasp. I must have murdered your entire family in a past life to deserve this. The phrase sounded oddly familiar. I thought through my tears. Yep, that's definitely my mom. Here it is, this cinematic adaptation of the next segment, tailored for us audience with high visual tension and natural, sharp dialogue. The heat wave. The campus tournament was in full swing. and as a student volunteer, I was being worked to the bone. I spent the entire day sprinting across campus. Forget eating, I hadn't even had a single spare second to swallow a sip of water. By the time I stumbled back into the dorm at 8 p.m., the room was already packed. Luke Chi and gang was on the floor doing crunches. Shirtless, drenched in sweat, the room was practically suffocating under a thick cloud of raw, unadulterated testosterone. The second my brain flashed back to the massive T-Rex incident from the bathroom, my eyes darted away. I tried to rouse whatever stealth skills I had to sneak past him. Suddenly, Luke Chi and gang bolted upright. He grabbed his yoga mat and rolled it up with a series of aggressive, violent thuds. Yikes. No chill. Sports majors really had the temperament of a short fuse. But as toxic as his attitude was, you couldn't deny the facts. The guy was gorgeous, towering, and carried that elite athlete status. On the campus forums, he was voted the undisputed top tier. I still vividly remember the thirsty threads written about him. Luke Chi and gang is built like a tank. Guy definitely has a motor installed in his hips. With a flusher his knuckles get, the harder he drives in bed. It was the kind of stuff that made you blush just reading it. As a fellow guy, a tiny pang of bitterness hit me. We both had the same anatomy, so why did he get a fan club while I had a soft, squishy stomach? Whatever. I wasn't going to let it get to me. Staying bitter causes wrinkles. The mint-flavored oasis. Midnight arrived like a fever. I woke up licking my dry, cracked lips, dead-eyed and running entirely on sleepwalking autopilot. I threw off my blanket to hunt for water. But the moment I pulled my curtain back, I froze. In the pitch-black room, a soft, dim nightlight was glowing. It was coming from the Macass bunk. His privacy curtain was pulled completely wide open, a silent, glowing invitation cutting through the dark. Right next to him, Luke Chi and gang's curtain was closed, but his body was pressed so hard against the fabric that the sharp, muscular contours of his broad chest were thrown into stark, undeniable relief. I stared blankly at the glowing light on the left, then shifted my gaze to the solid wall of muscle on the right. I swallowed hard. So damn thirsty. With a quiet swish, I closed my own curtain and crawled straight toward the adjacent bed. My subconscious remembered. There was a fresh, crisp oasis over here that tasted like peppermint. It wasn't ice cold, but it was warm, filling, and exactly what I needed to quench this burning throat. Where was it again? Pressing my body flush against his, I crawled upward. Inch by inch. The man beneath me violently shuddered. The next fraction of a second was a blur. His eyes snapped open, bloodshot and dark in the shadows. In one explosive motion, he flipped me over, pinning me flat against the mattress. The bunk bed groaned under the impact. Before I could even process this sudden shift, the peppermint oasis erupted over me. He took my mouth with a feral, lawless intensity, sucking on my tongue until it went completely numb. I slept like a baby for the rest of the night, cocooned in his heat. I didn't even need a blanket to feel perfectly warm. Meanwhile, the guy sharing my mattress spent the remaining hours locked in a brutal, agonizing wrestling match with his own dark desires. The alpha peacocks. Lately, my roommates were glitching. These three elusive campus gods who normally treated the dorm like a sketchy motel were suddenly making curfew every single night. Whenever I tried to grab a drink, Luke Chi and gang would miraculously appear out of nowhere, completely shirtless, and snatch the glass right out of my hand. Hey, that's my water. I muttered, annoyed. In response, he shoved a massive mountain of premium snacks onto my desk. We read bros. Guarantee we. What's wrong with sharing a drink? Well, I was perpetually dehydrated lately. It was hard to refuse free food. I just dropped my head and aggressively chewed through his snacks to vent my frustration. Then there was Lang Tiu, the campus prince who usually dressed like a sleek, high-end CEO had suddenly abandoned his nightlife. Now, he lounged around the dorm in oversized, heavily distressed knit sweaters that slouched completely off his shoulders, exposing his collarbones, neck, and chest. I don't know who designed that sweater, but the gaps in the knit were huge, leaving his pecs and abs tantalizingly visible. In fact, yesterday, when it was just the two of us in the room, I accidentally caught a direct glimpse of his pink nipple peeking right through one of those distressed holes. It was shameless, absolute thirst trap behavior. But what was I supposed to do? I just pretended to be blind. You can't just walk up to a guy, tap him on the shoulder, and say, "Hey bro, your nip is staging a prison break through your clothes." A man has to preserve his roommate's dignity. Mac was the only one acting somewhat normal, though rumors whispered he might be falling in love. The guy was already ridiculously attractive, barefaced, But late, he carried this ethereal, otherworldly glow that didn't even seem human. Every time I looked at him, I spaced out. I didn't dare admit to anyone that every time I stared at him during the day, he'd end up starring as my wife in my weird midnight dreams. I was supposed to be straight. True beauty is a hazard to the soul. The three of them spent all day strutting around the tight space like peacocks fanning their feathers, leaving me the fourth roommate looking like a potato in the background. My chances of pulling a girlfriend were officially dead in the water. God, I am so tired. They've overheard truth. Another day of getting absolutely run into the ground. Mentally and physically shattered, I was running on pure fumes, dragging my feet down the hallway with one singular goal: crash onto my mattress and slip into a beautiful, uninterrupted coma. But just as my hand touched the doorknob of the dorm, my own name drifted through the crack. Wait, are they talking shit about me? Fuck's sake. How desperate is Tong Yin Tan to be crawling into a different bed every single night? Skin not white, and ass that perky. Guy barely looks like a dude anyway. Ed. It's honestly sickening. The insults flew, but their delivery was completely off. The words sounded forced, dripping with a bizarre, defensive friction, less like genuine disgust and more like they were desperately trying to reverse psychology each other into losing interest. But my brain stopped at the first sentence. Who the fuck is gay? I am straight. Who is out here systematically assassinating my character and crawling into beds, rotating through them? I am not a slut, no. Scratch that. Why the hell would I be crawling into any guy's bed in the first place? I was about to violently storm inside to demand a face-to-face confrontation when the voices escalated. The three of them were suddenly locked in a chaotic, high-stakes argument over a custody schedule. The standout, Luke Chiang cleared his throat, trying to sound like the voice of reason. Look, I'm sleepwalking like this isn't sustainable. How about this? We're roommates, so I'll take one for the team. I'll take responsibility and look after him. Lang Ti let out a sharp, mocking laugh. Nice try. Man, didn't you just call him desperate? You think you can actually handle the heat? Luke Chiang barked out a frustrated laugh. Stepping forward, his massive 6'4" frame threw a heavy shadow across the room, his face twisted into a smug smirk. If anyone can't handle it, it's you. You're the resident playboy, right? Your body probably already hollowed out from your nightlife. You really think you have the stamina to keep him satisfied? Lang Ti shot him a look of pure disdain. You're all height and no brain. Look. Quality over quantity. Bro. Try not to be all show and no substance. Oh. The air in the room spiked with friction. They squared up. Shoulders tense. Looking half a second away from throwing hands. The Ice King's verdict. Tamak watched them with blatant revulsion before finally deigning to speak. His ethereal, model-perfect face delivered a strike colder than a winter blizzard. One of you is acting like a voluntary wet nurse, and the other is functioning as a literal human water fountain. Neither of you is decent. What the hell are you even fighting over? The atmosphere instantly turned toxic. Both Lang Tiu and Luke Chiang's expressions darkened to ash. Tamak's venomous words clearly struck a nerve, dragging up the memory of those breathless, sticky midnight murmurs. Wife, oh, wife. It was enough to make a man throw up blood from sheer irritation. Oh, and you're any better? Lang Ti fired back, leading the charge. You're just using your face to manipulate him. What else do you actually bring to the table? Luke Chiang immediately nodded in solidarity. Exactly. Thank you. Tamak let out a soft, dangerous chuckle. At least I have a face he actually craves. What do you two have? A massive chest. A mouth full of spit. Are you fucking kidding me? The awakening. Outside the door, I shrank into a tiny, trembling ball. My entire reality didn't just crack, the sky completely caved in on my head. Fact 1, my roommates think I'm a closeted predator. Fact 2, I have a severe sleepwalking disorder where I randomly invade a different roommate's bed every night. Fact 3, I didn't just cling to Mac, I called him my wife and aggressively made out with him. Fact 4, I didn't just look for water, I used Luke Chiang as a personal hydration station. Fact 5, and worst of all, I mistook Lang Ti for my mother and spent the night aggressively nursing on his chest. The swollen nipple. The mystery was solved. The culprit was me. There were so many layers of psychological and existential trauma to process that my brain just flatlined. I didn't even know where to start unpacking the damage. Yeah. My soul is officially dead. The stalemate. The argument inside the dorm raged on, eventually dissolving into a tense stalemate of mutual disgust. Every single one of them had made up his mind the second I stepped through that door. Whoever played his cards right got to claim me tonight. The result. A total coward like me went full fugitive mode. Holed up in a cheap hotel room, I pulled out my phone and typed every single one of my symptoms into an AI chatbot. The response was instantaneous. AI based on your symptoms: midnight sleepwalking, dehydration, crying for mom, and demanding a wife. The core issue is clear: you are under extreme psychological stress, severely lacking a sense of security, and chronically dehydrated during the day. This is scenario A, driven entirely by mental pressure. A proper outlet or a simple adjustment to your daily routine should fix the issue. Seeing that I wasn't permanently broken, a wave of relief washed over me. I eagerly tapped out a follow-up, asking about scenario B. AI scenario B is a classic case of daylight thoughts becoming midnight dreams. It is highly probable that you harbor deep, suppressed romantic feelings for your roommates, which are now manifesting through your sleepwalking habits. Minute. What the hell is that supposed to mean? AI, you have a massive crush on them. Smack. I threw my phone face down onto the mattress. No fucking way. Absolutely impossible. I wasn't gay. How could I possibly like men? And worse, 3 of them at the exact same time. This chatbot was officially defective. The slip up. But by the very next afternoon, reality slapped me squarely across the face. To avoid my 3 roommates, who I was convinced had turned completely deviant because of my midnight bedroom invasions, I chose to leave for class absurdly early. My strategy was simple: out before sunrise, back after midnight. Total avoidance. I was going to kill this messy, uninvited, totally chaotic romantic tension before it could even breathe. I channeled every spy thriller I'd ever watched, navigating the campus with extreme stealth. Luckily, the university grounds were massive. Halfway through the day, there wasn't a single trace of them. I let out a massive sigh of relief. Grabbing a cream-filled pastry from a convenience store, I walked with a light, bouncy step, humming a tune under my breath as I hunted for the perfect, scenic spot to enjoy my lunch. As I passed the outdoor basketball courts, I instinctively glanced over. And then, time froze. A massive, heavy basketball was hurling through the air, flying straight for my skull. Holy shit. Who is trying to assassinate me? Pure reflex took over, and I threw my hands up to shield my face. What I didn't see was Luke Chiang. From a few yards away, his massive frame blurred into motion. In 3 explosive strides, he closed the distance. Suddenly, a heavy, solid hand clamped around my waist, yanking me forward so hard my face smashed painfully into a wall of rock-hard chest muscle. Thwack. The ball hit its target, directly above my head. A low, strangled groan vibrated through his chest. Luke Chiang's furious, deep voice rumbled against my ear. Slowly, I tilted my head up. PFFD. Look, my comedy threshold is usually pretty high. I don't laugh easily. But right now, a massive, angry goose egg was already swelling on the back of Luke Chiang's head, and my cream pastry was smashed completely flat, painting his rugged, handsome face in a glorious explosion of white whipped cream. It was pure slapstick gold. Ha. Ha ha. Still pinned tightly in his arms, I burst out laughing so hard tears literally leaked from my eyes. Luke Chiang's face flushed a violent, furious crimson, looking ready to spontaneously combust. You're laughing. He hissed, his jaw tight. I just took a bullet for you, and you're fucking laughing at me. I'm sorry. I really shouldn't be laughing. But PFFD. Ha. I tried to apologize. I really did. But looking at that majestic, model-esque face completely vandalized by convenience store cream, I physically could not stop. Tongue. 10. The infirmary. The nurse's office was dead quiet. The school doctor cleared Luke Chiang of concussion, tossed us a tube of anti-inflammatory ointment, and left for an early dinner. We were left sitting side by side on the edge of the cot. He turned away, presenting his broad back so I could apply the meds. The whipped cream was gone, but that dangerously sweet, sugary scent still clung to his skin, hitting my nose with every breath. My stomach, completely empty from missing lunch, let out a pathetic rumble. I dipped the cotton swab into the jar and started dabbing it onto the angry swelling at the base of his skull. But my eyes kept slipping down to the massive expanse of his shoulders, the hard, functional curve of his biceps. When he caught that ball for me earlier, when I looked up and saw his face, I wasn't sure if it was adrenaline or something else, but my heart had physically ached from how hard it slammed against my ribs. Fuck. Was that stupid chatbot actually right? Out of all 3 of them, is he the one I actually like? Gotta. The absolute panic of a lifelong virgin. Switch. Oh. Luke grunted. I had accidentally pressed too hard. Sorry, I blurted, snapping my head up. The words caught in my throat. Right across from us was a full-length mirror. In the reflection, Luke's dark, obsidian eyes were locked dead onto me. He hadn't been looking away. He had been watching my entire internal crisis unfold through the glass. My pupils dilated. I bit my lip, my mind spinning into a chaotic panic. I opened my mouth to scramble for an excuse, but he didn't give me the chance. He whipped around, his massive frame shifting in a blur as he threw his weight into me, pinning me flat against the infirmary cot. He hovered over me, shadowing the light. A split second before his mouth slammed into mine, his voice dropped to a dangerous, low rasp. Thirsty yet? I'm not. The word was instantly swallowed, choked out as his lips locked onto mine. It was a relentless, suffocating assault. Zero room for negotiation. A full-blown hurricane ripped through whatever sanity I had left. We're kissing. Lucci and gang is actually fucking kissing me. And this wasn't some safe, hazy midnight delusion. This was broad daylight, in the middle of a school clinic. The sky didn't just fall, my entire straight identity exploded into dust. Mom. Your son is gay. I am so undeniably gay. The sheer panic of it kept me from going back to the dorm. If I sleepwalk tonight, who knows what I'd do to him. Actually, based on that kiss, he'd probably be the one destroying me. But I couldn't risk it. The night market. That evening, back at the hotel, hunger finally won. I walked down to the local night market, looking to grab some greasy comfort food to numb the trauma. The vendor had just laid out a plate of steaming, tar-grilled skewers on my plastic table. I hadn't even snapped my chopsticks apart yet when a cool, familiar voice cut through the ambient noise. Tongue Tan. I looked up. Demak stood there, his long hair pulled back into a sleek ponytail. Under the harsh, buzzing neon lights of the street stall, the guy looked like a literal piece of fine art, totally out of place. He was alone. I was alone, trying to be socially functional. I offer, want to get some food. To my absolute horror, he didn't decline. The ethereal, untouchable Demak was actually going to sit down at a sketchy sidewalk joint. Great. I shouldn't have been polite. Now I had to share. Demak wasn't a talker, and my social anxiety was peaking. We sat in a heavy, loaded silence until his eyes drifted down. His brow twitched. Is that one good? I blinked, swallowing the piece I was chewing. Yeah. Is yours not? He gave a slight nod, his gaze shifting from his plate to fixate entirely on the skewer currently held between my fingers. Honestly, the way he was looking at me was too much to handle. My hand shook slightly as I extended it toward him. Here. He didn't reach out to take it. Instead, he just leaned his upper body across the small table. His eyes, dark and magnetic like a trap, stayed locked dead onto mine as he tilted his head and took a slow, deliberate bite out of the exact spot my lips had just left. Inside, I was screaming. Holy fucking shit. Why was he looking at me like that? To make matters a million times worse, after he chewed, his tongue slipped out to slowly lick a stray drop of sauce from the corner of his lips. You're right, he murmured. His voice a low, heavy drawl that felt like thick silk sliding over skin. Yours definitely tastes better. The heavy, suffocating ambiguity in his eyes made it impossible to tell if he was talking about the skewer or me. The shadow. Dinner was done, and it was time to part ways. I said my goodbyes, and Demak had seemingly agreed to them. Except, as I started walking down the street toward my hotel, I realized he was still there. He was shadowing me, keeping a steady, maddening distance right behind my back. Thud. Thud. The sound of his footsteps was doing a serious number on my nerves. Finally, unable to handle the creeping paranoia any longer, I whipped around. Aren't you going back to the dorm? Demak blinked his long, thick lashes. Suddenly, his gaze dropped, his expression shifting into something intensely lonely and abandoned. He didn't say a word, which only made me panic more. Don't give me that look, I blurted, looking around frantically. You're making it seem like I'm bullying you or something. The street was completely deserted. Only when I confirmed we were alone did I manage to shove my heart back down into my chest. A long, heavy pause stretched between us before Demak finally spoke. Why did you suddenly stop coming back to the dorm? Do you love me that much? Of course not. If I hated you guys, I would have moved out weeks ago. Wait. A violent flush crawled straight up my neck. My brain betrayed me, flashing back to those vivid midnight dreams where I kept latching onto him like a koala and whine, wife, I mean, Sleepwalking logic and dream logic couldn't possibly overlap entirely. Why? Right. God. I was terrified. Asleep. I was so deep in my own existential crisis that I didn't even notice Mac closing the distance. A cold finger hooked under my chin, forcing my head up. My eyes flew open, and my brain completely short-circuited under the absolute, lethal buster shot of his visual power. I was staring like a total idiot. Wife. The sticky, whiny words slipped right past my teeth before I could stop it. I instantly slapped both hands over my mouth. You stupid, treacherous mouth. What the hell did you just say? But Mac had heard it, clear as day. His eyes instantly darkened, a slow, predatory smirk spreading across his lips. In one fluid motion, his hands locked around me, pinning me flat against the dark, deserted brick wall. Babe, he murmured, his breath hot against my face. What did you just call me? Wife? So, you actually remember everything you do when you're sleepwalking, don't you? I shook my head violently. Now, I don't remember shit. I am completely innocent. But the next fraction of a second was a blur. The ice-cold prince leaned down and utterly crushed my lips. His tongue systematically pried my mouth open, sinking in for a deep, bruising, utterly intoxicating kiss that stole the oxygen straight from my lungs. My vision swam. He let out a dark, breathless chuckle against my mouth. Ape. Breathe. The escape room. And that was how I ended up completely dazed, leading Mac straight back to my hotel room. He made himself right at home. He showered, blow-dried his long hair, and then clad in a loosely thrown-together bathrobe that left his chest half-exposed lounged right across the mattress I had slept on last night. His damp hair was splayed over the sheets, radiating the exact same body wash scent as mine. He lightly patted the pillow next to him. Come here, babe. My heart was hammering so violently against my ribs I thought it was going to burst right through my skin and land into his palm. My Adam's apple, Bob. I swallowed hard, looking like a deer in headlights. Ultimately, under his soft, mocking laughter, I used the oldest excuse in the book, fetching a bottle of water and practically bolted out the door. Jesus, Tong Nin Tan. You are a pathetic excuse of a man. Clutching the plastic water bottle, I walked down the hallway at a glacial, turtle-like pace. The mental image of Mac lying in my bed was doing weird, thrilling things to my brain, making my steps drag even slower. I was almost back to my door. My throat felt incredibly dry. Mom, if your son is gay, are you still going to love him? I mean, hypothetically. If Mac tries something tonight, and the heat gets too high, and I accidentally let him score the winning goal, you can't really blame me. Right? Everyone loves beautiful things. I might be a good, upstanding citizen of the new era, but I'm still just a human man bound by worldly temptation. I took a deep, grounding breath. My internal monologue was finally perfectly rationalized. The ambush. I slid my keycard out. Just as I was about to press it against the lock, a hand violently clamped around my wrist. Before I could even scream, I was yanked backward 2 sharp, aggressive strides and dragged straight into the dark, adjacent room. Holy shit. A high-end hotel like this has actual perverts lurking in the halls. In the pitch black, my back was slammed hard against the heavy wooden door. I stared blindly into the void, my voice trembling at a pathetic frequency. I am warning you. There are security cameras all over the hallway. Don't you dare try anything. The cops will be here in 2 seconds. Just you wait. A sharp, mocking chuckle echoed from the shadows directly in front of me. And a hand snapped up, and the overhead lights flicked on, blindingly bright. This hotel belongs to my family. A dark, familiar voice drawled. Who the hell is going to arrest me? The figure stepped into the light, his eyes boring into mine with a dangerous, heavy intensity. Don't you think it's a little messed up, kid? Sneaking out behind your mom's back just to open a hotel room with another guy. My eyes nearly popped out of my skull. Game over. It was Lane Teton. And holy fuck, he looked infinitely more terrifying than any random pervert. The trap. My body was pinned flat against the mattress, my lower back forced down into a sharp, arcing curve. Lang Tiu locked both my wrists above my head with a single hand, his entire weight dropping over me. The thin fabric of his shirt did absolutely nothing to block the scorching, radiant heat of his skin. He gripped my waist, his mouth hovering just over the nape of my neck. You left your mom behind to rot alone in that room while you went wild outside. His voice was a low, dangerous vibration. That brat. A heavy hand clamped around my jaw, tilting my face up. Whip. as he kisses rained down on my ear, my cheek, until he completely forced my head back and captured my mouth in a fierce, suffocating kiss. He tasted faintly of alcohol. Don't. I am. Lang Tiu. I gasped against his lips. You're drunk. I thrashed with every ounce of strength I had, but the absolute most I managed to accomplish was kicking my shoes off the bed. The regression. Suddenly, he let go, standing at the edge of the mattress and looking down at me. I flipped over and scrambled backward, frantically kicking my legs out to get away from him, trying to bury myself into the deep end of the bed. But the mattress was too soft, the blankets too tangled. After a pathetic, chaotic struggle, I had barely moved half a foot. The sight must have looked completely ridiculous because a sudden, breathy laugh broke from Lang Tiu's lips. He leaned down. I bolted. I had barely crawled 2 feet before a long arm snapped out, wrapping around my ankle and dragging me right back under him. His heavy frame pressed down again. Just as I braced myself for something completely illicit, he reached up and started methodically unbuttoning his own shirt. Lee, what the hell is he doing? Before I could process it, a hand locked onto the back of my neck and forcefully buried my face right into his broad, muscular chest. Good boy, he murmured, his voice completely dropping into a sleep-slurred haze. Time to nurse. Minute. I froze like a statue for what felt like an eternity before I finally managed to violently shove him off me. The guy who had just been a terrifying, dominant predator a second ago was now fast asleep, his eyes shut tight, breathing softly. I stared at his face. Then I stared at his massive, sculpted chest. I wanted to cry real tears of absolute psychological agony. Tong Ning Tan. Look at the absolute cosmic karma you have manifested. You took a high-end, elegant playboy and thoroughly traumatized him into a muscle-bound wet nurse. Sure, a boy mom is technically still a mom. But the sheer, unadulterated pressure was going to blow my brain cells to pieces. Honestly, I just wanted to watch the world burn. The fast food sanctuary. An hour later, I was sitting in a brightly lit KFC, aggressively tearing into a massive hamburger with pure venom. I was supposed to be a normal, sunshiny college student, yet here I was homeless, exiled, and completely displaced by a series of accidental midnight offenses. I couldn't go back to the dorm. My hotel room had been hijacked by the Mac, and the room next door was currently occupied by my busty, completely unrelated pseudo-mommy. I used to think my life was hard before this. Now I realized I was just ungrateful. You truly cannot empathize with the stupidity of your past self. Dad. Mom. Please save me. I need to escape this nuclear hazard of a dorm. Just the thought of 3 grown, elite men staring at my ass with that feral, predatory hunger made my scalp itch with anxiety. My ass literally could not carry the weight of that many expectations. The defeat. I pulled out my phone and aggressively typed to the AI chatbot again. Is it possible for someone to genuinely fall for 3 people at the exact same time? Note I am absolutely not fickle. Cheating bastard. The AI replied almost instantly. AI operating on the premise that you are an upstanding, non-fickle individual. Yes. Falling for 3 people simultaneously is entirely psychologically viable. I didn't even bother reading the rest. I slammed the phone face down onto the plastic table. AI is a joke. It can never replace human empathy. It didn't even know how to validate my suffering. Exhausted from the relentless 24-hour emotional roller coaster, I finally collapsed, burying my face into my crossed arms on the grease-stained table, and drifted into a dead sleep. When morning broke, I dragged my hollowed-out, zombie-like body straight back to the dorm. Screw it. Let it happen. Even if the apocalypse hits, nothing stands between a severely sleep-deprived man and his bed. Screw the men. Screw the feelings. Everyone can get the hell out of my way. The collision. I completely ignored the mixture of shock and sheer, unadulterated ecstasy on Luke Chait and Gang's face. I climbed straight up to my top bunk, threw the blanket over myself, and knocked out cold in a single second. Hot on my heels, Mac and Lang Tiu collided right at the dorm entrance. They traded a dark look, both of their expressions twisted with unspoken fury. It didn't take a genius to figure out what I'd been up to during my brief disappearance. When the 2 of them had rushed back to the room earlier and found the door dead-bolted from the inside, they knew something was wrong. They frantically jammed the key into the lock. Sure enough, the moment the door swung open, the sound of muffled, heart-wrenching sobs drifted down from the top bunk. Mixed in with the crying were heavy, ragged male breaths and choke, broken whines. Lang Tiu bolted up the ladder. Losing the race for the steps, Mac vaulted straight onto Luke Chait and Gang's mattress to get a visual. Both of them ripped the privacy curtains back simultaneously. There I was, fully clothed, completely sprawled over Luke Chang's chest, weeping hysterically. I'm so thirsty. I'm so tired. I don't want to be gay. I don't want to like guys. Wow. The twin sobbed. I pouted my lips and aggressively planted 2 wet, sloppy kisses right on Luke Chang's mouth, treating him like a water fountain to clear my throat. The choice. Witnessing this blatant display of affection, Lang Tu and Damak looked ready to commit murder. But backing down now wasn't an option for either of them. A smug, victorious smirk spread across Luke Chang's face. He opened his mouth to gloat, but before he could utter a sound, I pushed myself up onto my knees. I turned toward Lang Tu, who was still clinging to the ladder, and extended both arms like a needy toddler. Mommy, hold me. Lang Tu's face lit up with absolute ecstasy. He reached out to haul me into his arms. The Luke Chang's massive hand clamped down on his wrist, locking him in place. Trapped in the crossfire, my sleepwalking brain improvised. I reached for Lang Tu's half-unbuttoned shirt, part of the fabric, and buried my face into his chest. Suck. Suck. Mommy, I love you most. This time, the tables turned. Luke and Damak looked like they'd just swallowed broken glass as they watched me aggressively nursing on Lang Tu's pecs. Damak's expression iced over instantly. He snapped out my name, his voice a low, warning blade Tong Nim Tan. My blanked, dazed face lifted from Lang Tu's chest. My glassy eyes suddenly sparked with recognition. Wife, is that you? Slipping right out of Lang Tu's grasp, I scrambled over Luke and ditched them both, and crawled straight into the Damak's space, throwing my arms around his neck. Wife, I love you the most. Miwa. Ow. Luke and Lang Tu looked utterly miserable. All 3 of them were trapped in a state of absolute existential torment, while I eventually passed out, completely resetting my stress levels. Seriously. But good night's sleep is the ultimate life hack. The Cold War. I honestly had no clue what was wrong with my brain. Normally, I was fine. But the second I experienced a shred of daytime stress or anxiety, my midnight alter ego would manifest. The hospital doctors couldn't find a damn thing wrong with me either. They just told me to maintain emotional stability during the day. Easy for them to say. I'm a human being, not a block of wood. What am I supposed to do? Become a monk? The vibe in the dorm became suffocatingly bizarre. It was a constant, unspoken psychological warfare. Lang Tu became my personal hydration warden, hovering over me to ensure I drank gallons of water. Luke Chang started aggressively spamming my phone with thirst-trap gym selfies. Damak, the guy was suddenly hitting the studio to relentlessly build up his chest muscles. I could only sigh. The quiet, distant roommate dynamic we used to have was dead and buried. Honestly, this dynamic became my biggest source of stress. The second they started cornering me, demanding I choose one of them, my sleepwalking brain would just go on a frantic, multi-bunk rotation that night. As frustrated as they were forced to declare a fragile peace treaty just to survive. During college, the dorm setup actually worked in my favor. With so many eyes around, our hyper-complicated dynamic stayed somewhat contained. If Luke and tried to make a move, I'd bolt to Lang Tu. If Lang Tu tried to lock me down, I'd crawl into Damak's bed. And if Damak tried to seduce me and I felt my straight defense lines crumbling, I'd hide right behind Luke and massive frame. For 4 straight years of university, these 3 apex predators were reduced to frustrated, helpless husbands, allowed to do nothing more than nibble and cover me in hickeys and spit during my midnight episodes. Honestly, I had to give myself props. Tong Nim Tan, you are the undisputed master of balancing a toxic harem. Legendary behavior. The reckoning. Until graduation hit. Those 3 wolf pups, who had essentially been starved for 4 years straight, finally snapped. They literally kidnapped me, threw me into the back of a car, and brought me to a massive luxury penthouse they had co-signed on months ago. As I stared at the oversized bed looming closer and closer, my internal alarms went off at a deafening volume. A tragic slow pop ballad started echoing in my head. The petals fall. The body breaks, whose shattered smile remains. You guys, you can't fucking do this to me. I thrashed with everything I had. But a single, soft college grad stood 0 chance against 3 fully grown, fiercely athletic men. Damak smirked, pressing a soft kiss against my fingertips as he delivered the final verdict. You couldn't choose for 4 whole years, babe. Since you can't make up your mind, We're just going to have to devour you together. That night felt like stepping onto a literal battlefield. A relentless, multi-front assault. By sunrise, there wasn't a single square inch of my skin left unmarked. Mom. If your son is gay and ends up with 3 boyfriends at the same time, do you still love me? To which my mother's golden response was, get lost, don't interrupt my mahjong game. Yeah. Fade years. My severe lack of affection definitely stemmed from childhood trauma. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay with us for the next part of their journey. Until next time, sleep well, dream softly, and remember some love stories are worth the wait.